Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we've got the pleasure of watching PlzenskaSkillaPico of the European server playing in possibly one of the best premium tanks in the game. It's the Bourrasque. Now, I don't usually like to feature gameplay of overpowered premiums rocking and rolling on the battlefield, but trust me, with the tense situation at the end of this game, it's going to have your heart pounding, and it will most likely be in your mouth by the end of this replay. It definitely did mine, and I think we can learn a lot from excellent players like Plzenska. I hope you don't mind, instead of saying PlzenskaSkillaPico for the whole of this replay, as I'm probably going to mess that up multiple times, I'm calling you Plzenska for short, buddy. He's going to show you how to absolutely rock and roll on this map, and how to basically dominate the vision game, and also how to play very intelligently in close end game situations where you're in one of those kind of scenarios where all seems lost. So let's talk about the Bourrasque a little bit. Kind of the hull of an EBR 105, oh no, sorry, the turret of an EBR 105 wrapped up with like a Bat Chatillon 12T. It has a wonderful 105mm gun that doesn't have the biggest of magazines for an autoloader with only 2 rounds, but each shell deals 360, which means that you can do 720 damage within 2 seconds of the first shot. And this burst damage just allows the Bourrasque to make trades, and so it doesn't really matter that the vehicle's damage per minute is a fairly lowly 1,800 when you are hitting for 720 damage. Combine that with the fact that the vehicle is incredibly sneaky, one of the most sneaky medium tanks that you'll be able to get your hands on in the high tier of the game. And it's also very mobile with a top speed limit of 62 and a power to weight ratio of nearly 26. And I think you can see why the Bourrasque is just so firmly favored amongst a lot of players in World of Tanks. And even though Plzenska was firing at the UDES, didn't get spotted with the first shot, did with the second shell, however, just showing you how sneaky this vehicle is. Interestingly enough, Plzenska has decided that they only want to have one build on this vehicle. As we were loading into the game, I didn't see an option of 2 sets of equipment. Personally, for me on the Bourrasque, I love to have 2 sets of equipment on this tank. I like to set it up for a combat build and then for a full scouting build when you end up on a map like Malinovka or Prokhorovka. It looks like Plzenska has decided that they only have one build on the Bourrasque, and Plzenska, hopefully when somebody tells you about this replay going up on my YouTube channel, I'd really like it if you came and told us your thoughts of the Bourrasque, because you're clearly an excellent player. And I think it's interesting for me that you've only decided that one equipment fits all on the Bourrasque, or maybe there was just some kind of a replay bug. Please do let me know in the comments, and if you do reply, I will make sure that I pin that comment so we can all get a better idea of your thoughts of the Bourrasque and the equipment that you've chosen to take. Now, one thing is certain about the Bourrasque, and that is, while it hits hard, it doesn't hit accurately, and it has a big bloom after firing. My gut instinct is that Plzenska looks like they're actually using vertical stabilizers on this tank, because the bloom after firing is not too big with their build. It's something that I personally choose to do as well. Some people will go as far as to use aiming devices on the Bourrasque, because the accuracy of .42 means that you can't really engage at decent distances, where the Bourrasque actually does very well because it controls the engagement against its opponent. Personally, for me, I feel that vents still do 3% accuracy, and I'd rather have that with the overall view range buff, which means that I can end up dropping coated optics and using a vision system on quite a few maps. But again, it's all down to player preference. That's the beautiful thing about World of Tanks, is there's no real right or wrong way to set up your vehicles. There's just a way that matches your playstyle and what works for you. Talking about what works for you, Plzenska is going to have a real hard time in this game, considering that their team are down 4 tanks and also down 5,000 hit points. Well, at least up until the Chieftain prototype in the Stridsvagn S1 got absolutely butchered in that scenario. Now, they're only down by a couple of tanks, but still down by 5,000 hit points, showing you that this is a back and forth battle where both teams are hemorrhaging, as usually happens on Westfield when the team that wins the north has to try and push across towards the south. Here we can see that this tank has very poor penetration at 190, and that was a lucky shell there against the IS-3A. Some people go as far to only fire gold ammunition in the Bourrasque because of its lowly standard penetration of 190, and oh dear, I just realized something. Okay. Yeah, Plzenska pulled the wool over my eyes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Yep, they put their premium rounds on their one key, which is why I was so surprised that all of these rounds seem to be working, and so surprised that that regular round I thought it was, because, you know, you take for granted that people have their regular rounds inside their first shot, managed to penetrate the IS-3A. A quick mouse over and Detective QuickyBaby has realized that Plzenska's premium rounds are on their one key, which have 240 millimeters of penetration, and so keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out whether Plzenska was just getting incredibly lucky with their penetration rolls, or alternatively, it was actually a removing of the ammunition, and in fact, these premium rounds are being fired as standard on this tank. Alright, so Plzenska is just running away from a situation that you can't really do too much about. The Concept 1B advancing, Stridsvagn S1, possible Skoda T56 and an E75, and so Plzenska is going across to try and help their platoon mate who's called Dr. Snake, or I'm going to call you Dr. Snake 007. That's an incredible name. I like that. I like that name a lot. Dr. Snake 007 playing in their ELC 90. And unfortunately, the platoon from the WAFT, or the Waft clan here, are now alone in a 2 versus 5 scenario, with the enemy team having 4,700 hit points and 3 higher tier vehicles to boot. So it looks like they figure out that as long as they're spotting from either side, then there's no way that the enemy team are going to be able to sneak up. And through using bush mechanics that we've seen Plzenska using all the way through the battle, if you manage to, in a very sneaky tank like the Bourrasque, spot your opponents, pull back behind the bush until it's no longer transparent, then you can shoot through, and more often than not you're not going to get spotted unless the enemy have exceptional amounts of view range, or possibly even a vision system, or both, right? So the Concept 1B now deciding that, hey, it's safe, you know, we're up 5 tanks against 2 low tier vehicles, we can advance in. And Plzenska says no. Ooh, with the second shell not actually penetrating, that's going to put a lot of pressure up on Dr. Snake 007 here. Would have been really nice if that Concept had fallen, but once they close the distance and Plzenska and Dr. Snake get spotted, then that means that shots will likely come out from all angles of this map, or even the Concept will be able to just put a big old shell into one of the 2 heroes' tanks at the end of this battle. Alright, so Plzenska doesn't seem to be too keen on trying to maybe flank around the east to try and get the side of the Concept. Instead, I guess, trying to get vision on the possibility of the E75 or the Stridsvagn S1 making their way up the slope. And this is just where it's calm and considered plays, trying to figure out what kind of angles you have on your opponents and trying to not just think about the obvious play, but where the next enemy might come is where it really shows the difference between absolutely incredible players like Plzenska here, who doesn't even get spotted in that scenario, and the casual players who believe that bush mechanics are some kind of witchcraft, right? And camera rating and view range doesn't matter. Alright, so Plzenska shuts down the Concept 1B, making up for that ricochet previously, now turns their attention to, of course, the Stridsvagn S1 that's most likely making their way in through the south. But wow, a little bit of a misplay there. I guess Plzenska not thinking that they actually had to go around the corner of the map there, and by taking that shortcut, the gap between these trees now allows the S1 to not only spot them, but to be able to remove all of their hit points to a point to where they are a one-shot. Now, of course, they will clearly know where the S1 is, but it doesn't look like they've actually communicated that. A little bit of a misplay there, but in this platoon. Or maybe they're on Discord, and I have no idea. If they're on Discord, then I need to shut up. But if you weren't on Discord, then of course you should try and let your friend know that the S1 was clearly in that bush location from when they spotted you and also got the shot in. Dr. Snake 007 unfortunately falls to the Tier 8 Swedish tank destroyer, leaving Plzenska now in a 1 versus 4 scenario where the enemy have 4,000 hit points to match against their 290. And it looks like either Skoda T56, the E75, or the Stridsvagn 1030 has decided that, you know what, maybe it's not a good idea if we just all waltz one by one up into upper slope against a player who's clearly very good at World of Tanks. And instead, why don't we actually force them away by capping? Very sensible. Plzenska manages to double tap a gold round there in through the side of the Stridsvagn S1. Hopefully they're going to still have enough premium ammunition to deal with the E75. And with 16 seconds left on this cap, they're going to have to hope that the bad accuracy of the Bourrasque doesn't rear its ugly head. Fully aimed there, one in through the side. Are they going to go for the follow-up shot? They do. Nice, clean, 755 damage, lowering the hit points of the tier 9 Swedish tank destroyer by half. And Plzenska is going to have to do a lot more of that in this battle if they want to try and whittle down this 2,700 hit points. Nevertheless, changing this 1 versus 4 into now a 1 versus 3, and with one of the tier 9s now being mortally wounded and the E75 clearly on, I think it was about 400 hit points left, they got a chance. They got 4 minutes left. And you should use all of your time in these kind of scenarios, but what you also can't do is faff. You can't waste your time. You have to still try and progress to try and get angles on your opponents. Does the E75 spot Plzenska? Looks like they didn't think they did. Are they going to try and follow this up? The last goal round going right through the top of the E75's turret. Now meaning that Plzenska is in a 1 versus 2 scenario. And it looks like the Stridsvagn 1030 realizes, well, I can't really sit in the cap circle anymore. There's so many bushes, the Bourrasque is easily going to be able to spot me. And so the Stridsvagn 1030 actually leaves the cap circle to try and maybe make it less obvious where they are, because the cap circle won't be going off. And also maybe to have a different angle to really try and surprise Plzenska. Maybe what the Stridsvagn has realized is that they have absolutely zero hope, unless they're using coated optics, of driving at the Bourrasque, and instead they're better to try and take a bush and to hope that the Bourrasque on the enemy team will try and make the aggressive play, or alternatively, that the Skoda T56 that we haven't seen for the last 5 to 10 minutes of this battle will get into it, will expose themselves, will show where they are, and they are hoarding 1,500 of the remaining hit points. So I like what Dr. Snake is saying, clearly communicating to the 1390 that really the 1390 whose great suggestion was go to end them. Yes, okay 1390. Unfortunately, I think we can see why you are dead and why you are being carried by Plzenska. And unfortunately, boys and girls, we find out that this game was not quite the hero battle that I thought it was going to be, as the Skoda T56 is clearly disconnected or AFK. Maybe thinking, my job's done, I can go move on, maybe I can go and get a sandwich while my team finish off this battle. They'll surely win when they're 5,000 hit points up and they've got like a 5 tank advantage against 2 tier 8 vehicles. Well, that clearly wasn't the case. And unfortunately for Plzenska here, his shells are kind of low rolling, which means that they've only got 4 rounds left in their tank, and now they're down to their standard ammunition. If one of these bounces, they probably won't have enough to be able to take on the Stridsvagn 1030. A lot of this is going to come down to luck, really. So the Stridsvagn 1030 has 745 hit points. Plzenska has 3 rounds of ammunition left. Now, if Plzenska high rolls, they're going to be able to destroy the Stridsvagn 1030 with only 2 of those shots. However, if they roll 50-50 and they effectively lose the coin flip and they don't high roll their magazine, that means that with 1 minute and 12 seconds left on this battle, they're actually going to have to load an entire extra magazine just to get 1 extra shell to go after the Stridsvagn 1030. So I love what Plzenska is doing here. He's realizing the Stridsvagn is trying to camp for a draw to force them out into the open. The Stridsvagn misses, only damaging the track of Plzenska. Now Plzenska managed to try and get the side of the Stridsvagn, and the Stridsvagn is clearly not the worst of players. As they're managing to get towards the hill, they're reversing up the slope. Plzenska low rolls, the Stridsvagn bounces once again, tracking damage to Plzenska, and now he's got the most nerve-wracking 15-second reload in World of Tanks history as he realizes that he's not going to be able to reload just in time for the Stridsvagn to be able to get their shell round. And now with 1 shell left in their tank and 16 hit points on the Stridsvagn 1030 and 25 seconds left in this game, what is Plzenska's move? He is going to chance it! right to the top of the tank, shutting down the Stridsvang 1030 and securing a whole game. And the Amex 3090, who was saying, just go end them, says, okay. I mean, yes, mate, at least you accepted how hard you got carried here by Plzenska. And this was a calm, cool-headed game, showing you exactly why the Bourrasque is a force, and also why Plzenska is a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. If there's one thing I must commend Plzenska for here, it is that lots of players would just kind of give up in that scenario. Lots of players would go, okay, I'm just going to go for a draw. What Plzenska realizes, and hopefully all great players realize, is that a draw is a loss for both teams. And just willing to have that confidence in themselves to be able to risk it for the victory and to go in irrelevant of only being on a one shot, and nevertheless getting a little bit lucky that the Stridsvang missed a couple of shells, but that's what you have to do. Do you think you're getting Radley Walters medals? Do you think you're winning 1 versus 4 scenarios if you're not taking risks? It's constant coin flips or constant dice roll, but with great plays you can like file off the odds, or you can change them into your favor. So instead of having to roll 1 in 6, maybe you're having to roll 1 in 2 in those scenarios. And it's those little things that we can learn from great players and great games like this that can help us to be able to make those great decisions as well. And Plzenska clearly takes down a hero's reward here, an Oskin's medal for destroying 3 enemy tanks with a medium tank that are at least 1 tier higher, the Faden's medal for destroying the final vehicle with the final shell. Now, usually when I see Faden's medals, it's people fudging them against an AFK tank or a tank that they know that they're super powerful against, where they fire off all of their ammunition and then put the final shell in. That was not the case here. This was a true Faden's medal, and they make some of the most exciting videos for YouTube. In addition, Plzenska gets the Radley Walters medal for managing to pick up 8 kills, a tank sniper medal for dealing a lot of that at long range, and a high caliber medal for 8,659 damage dealt, more than a lot of us have probably done in tier 10 tanks, let alone a tier 8 premium, and a defender medal for protecting the cap circle. Now, Plzenska fired a lot of credits of ammunition here, 124,000. But they made 128,000 credits. And that looks like because it happened during the Harvest Festival event where extra credits were occurring. But even if we take away the 70,000 credits for the battle payments, Plzenska would have still made over 200k as they were using a credit booster. And so it really makes you realize that with the way that the economy is and Wargaming putting in more boosters and more events and more credit ways to increase your credits, be it platooning, be it through your clan, or just be it through how darn good these premium tanks are and them being able to do more and more damage, that the economy for some players is very different for others, even if they're firing gold for the majority of their shots. Irrelevant of that, this was an awesome, close-fought game that went down to the wire by an awesome player in the form of PlzenskaSkillaPico. So, Plzenska, thank you so much for uploading your replay on the What Replays website. It was an absolute pleasure to commentate on it, and I hope all of you out there enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video on the weekend that it's released, I'm going to be playing the Waffenträger Alf 220 on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on my Twitch stream, so come along and fight me on the battlefield and see if you can manage to get one of the Engineer's starter keys. And let me know in the comments down below, what premium tank were you playing the most of during the Harvest event where there was that 50% extra credits boost, and why? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.